Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, I've got an article here I want to share with you from Ammo Land. This one was written by our friend David Codria, and it is entitled Continued Massacres of Christians in Nigeria Ensured by Citizen Disarmament. Wow, I think you guys can tell where this one's going. Now look, there's a lot of things that go on all around the world that are scary and frightening and that we don't always understand and we can't make sense of. But one thing we know is that an armed society is a polite society. And I want to share this story because I think it's very important to drive the point home of why we should never give up our Second Amendment rights here in the United States, because things can and will happen if we allow that to occur. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at CMMG for supporting today's video. They have some awesome stuff in the AR category. Their bufferless descent line is amazing. You can get it in 4.6, 5.7, 9mm, bunch of other pistol cartridges. It's just such a great platform. They recently came out with their Mark 47 in the descent line, so now you have a bufferless Mutant, which is great, in 7.62x39, takes AK mags. They have some great 22 conversion kits. They make great P90 barrels. Bunch of really cool stuff that they're doing. So check them out, CMMG, and tell them we sent you. All right, let's get into this. All right. A never-ending massacre of Christians being killed for sport is reportedly happening in Nigeria, yet the world appears to be largely deaf to the matter. More than 52,000 Christians have been butchered or hacked to death for being Christians since 2009 in Nigeria, according to Inner Society, a civil society group based in Onitsha. Probably mispronounced that city, I'm sorry. Christians are killed for sport, especially Christian children. Reverend Johnny Moore, a former commissioner for the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom and president of the Congress of Christian Leaders, told Fox, entire villages are burnt and pillaged. Thousands of churches have been destroyed. Women and children are hunted. Hunted and killed by whom, you might ask? Nigeria, which is Africa's most populous country with 206 million people, has grappled for over a decade with an insurgency in the northeast by Islamic extremist rebels in Boko Haram and its offshoot, the Islamic State West Africa Province, The Hill reported in 2022. The extremists, who have killed more than 35,000 people by a UN count, are fighting to establish Sharia law and to stop Western education. How can they do that? With Christians estimated in the Fox News report to represent 46% of Nigeria's population. Easy. The law-abiding are disarmed by law. In Nigeria, the right to private gun ownership is not guaranteed by law. Let's see. For those not familiar with that resource, it was a project of the Sydney School of Public Health, and while of a decidedly anti-gun bent, nonetheless provided instructive and useful compilations of gun laws from around the globe. And what that's referring to in the note for the link there at Gun Policy, the link goes to the Internet Archive as this site is closed down due to lack of funding, is what he's mentioning for that resource. Civilians are not allowed to possess machine guns, military rifles, and handguns. Private possession of semi-automatic assault weapons and private possession of handguns, pistols, and revolvers is prohibited, the site advised. Add to that licensing, background checks, and registration for what they are allowed to own, a prohibition on concealed carry, and stiff criminal penalties for gun law violations, and Nigeria is one of those places where not only are the law-abiding at an extreme disadvantage, but also a place that has enacted many of the same common-sense gun safety laws the Democrats are now furiously trying to impose on Americans. A more recent synopsis of Nigerian gun laws was posted in a 2023 article entitled Overview of Gun Regulation in Nigeria, which offers a cognitively dissonant solution. Amend Nigeria's Firearms Act to enunciate the right to kill in defense of oneself or in defense of one's family or property while simultaneously advocating further restrict people from legal access to firearms and reduce the circulation of firearms in the country, which will in turn save lives, which is obviously untrue, as we can see what's going on. The fraudulently named Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence recently reissued its annual gun law scorecard. Good grief, they've registered it like it has some value, where it rates states from A to F based on how ridiculous or how many ridiculous infringements that actually prevent defensive options for mostly Democrat co-prohibitionists impose under force of arms. They ought to expand it to rate countries with strong gun laws. Nigeria would get an A++. And yes, the world does appear to be largely deaf to the massacre, which is curious, especially since it is blacks being slaughtered wholesale. You would think Giffords and fellow gun grab groups that rely so strongly on urban members of color, along with black vote panderers, Joe Biden and the Democrats, race hustlers like Al Sharpton and the NAACP, and the Council on Islamic American Relations would be all over this. But they've apparently been too busy portraying non-leftist white people as racist and trying to impose Nigerian-style citizen disarmament on all. Wow, that escalated rather quickly. Now look, this is a terrible situation, and I don't care how anyone ever could spin this in a million years, okay? When you've got people going around and hacking kids and women and all sort of innocent people into bits with machetes because they have no means to defend themselves. I mean, look, this is not some dog whistle, right? This is not something that you can look at and say, well, that's a unique situation, or oh, that's their culture, or those people, and you know what, that's their problem because they're all the way over here, and that doesn't have anything to do with us. What does it have to do with American culture? You know, it's not just about what our rights are here in our country. This is just one of many examples of why we cannot allow the extreme anti-gunners to establish a foothold in the gun control realm here, because that leads to these types of situations. Now, it would take a very long time, of course, but this shows how bad things can degrade to, and how fast that can happen, how quickly it can happen, and how violently it can happen. When only the government has guns, people, this is the kind of stuff that happens, right? There have been many, many documented cases in history where gun control always leads to the wholesale slaughter of the civilian populace in one way or the other, right? So what firearms do is they put people on equal ground. They put people on equal footing, right? They make everyone equal, right? The rich, the poor, the weak, the strong, the fat, the skinny, the black, the white, the Jew, the Christian, the Muslim, doesn't matter who you are. If everyone has a firearm, everyone's on equal footing, on equal playing ground. I know I preach this left and right. I know I talk about it all the time. But it's just so important for people to realize that peace is rare, right? We live in a relative moment of peace. Yeah, but peace is a luxury. It is not a guarantee. And things can go south. Your entire world that you know and love can turn upside down and turn into utter chaos in the absence of firearms. And while society might want to clutch their pearls and cry their crocodile tears in regards to firearms and firearms owners and the amount of guns that are out there, at the end of the day, criminals do not follow laws. Laws are just polite suggestions to a criminal. All they're going to do is carry out their will using whatever tools at their disposal, and they're not going to care what the law is because they're criminals. So disarming the civilian populace because you're worried about what criminals will do is not really going to help anything. It's only going to make the civilians easier to oppress. It's going to make the civilians more of a target for criminals, more of a target for oppressive governments, as you see here in Nigeria. And these things cannot be tolerated in civilized society, where the free flow of information, you would think, would provide an avenue where people were sharing this like clockwork, sharing this like wildfire, like, hey, there's 50 some odd thousand people have been hacked to death with machetes because they don't have a way to protect themselves. But yet you've got these same people blowing that fake dog whistle, that fake virtue that they're trying to cash in on, of, oh, well, we have to have stricter gun laws because of gun violence and blah, 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 and all these made up terms and all this cherry-pick data and statistics that's meant to pull at your heartstrings. But at the end of the day, you want to talk about a statistic, 50,000 people getting hacked up with machetes and killed by their own government, I'd say that's newsworthy, wouldn't you? Now look, the world's a scary place. And all us gun owners are saying, we're not saying go looking for trouble, we're just saying be prepared if trouble comes to your door. It could be in the form of an oppressive government, it could be in the form of a criminal trying to take your stuff or hurt your family, or a rapist or a murderer, or no telling what. The world is full of many perils and dangers and evils, and a firearm puts you on equal footing with those dangers and evils. Just something to think about. I saw that article and I wanted to share it, and that's sad. I hate that. I hate seeing so many innocent lives getting taken like that, when it could be avoided if they had a way to fight back against these people. If someone had, if these folks had firearms and the same firearms as the military, or at least better or the same as what they have, they'd be able to stand toe-to-toe and fight back against them when these people try to pull this kind of stuff. But when the state has a monopoly on violence, it only leads to one avenue, and that is death of civilians in wholesale fashion. Hope everybody has a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.